Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Raging Reveals day number 11, where every day we'll be going through all of the announcements for Leagues 5 as we count up to the launch date on November 27th. Yesterday, we saw a huge sweep of quality of life updates to Leagues that, while it might not change all your regions, will surely increase just how fun the game is and get rid of some of those pain points. Today, we're back with some fresh new reveals with the utility relics. Corner Cutter will give you the Sage's Greaves, and just like Trickster before, this will give you agility experience while running. But that's not it. It will also double your lap count and give you 25% bonus experience, while Marks of Grace will also give you some gold. And you'll also get double quantity for all the other agility courses as well. Next up, we have Friendly Forager. This will allow you to get the Forager's Pouch, which is like an herb sack, and you'll randomly get grimy herbs while doing your gathering skills. In addition, this gives you a 90% chance to not consume secondary ingredients while Herblore, and you'll make 4-dose instead of 3-dose potions. Finally, we have Dodgy Deals, which gives you a 100% success rate on all of your thieving checks. Stalls no longer deplete, and you can auto-thieve them. And same thing with NPCs. You'll actually automatically pickpocket them, and all the loot you receive is noted. You'll also pickpocket all NPCs in an 11 by 11 area, getting extra loot. Utility skills in Leagues can be a real pain to grind out, and this is going to give you one of those options to compete against. Remember, this is going to be in one tier, so you're going to have to make one of these picks between Herblore, Agility, or Thieving. And I think it's really going to come down to what regions you're going for and how they can complement that, because these do have a lot of really good interactions based on your region combinations. First up, let's talk about Forager's Pouch. This is for Herblore. When you're gathering resources from woodcutting, fishing, mining, and hunting, all the gathering skills, the pouch will actually find and store a random grimy herb, and this is limited to herbs around your Herblore level, so plus 25. It also provides a small amount of token experience when one is found. I'm not going to lie, I kind of wish that this was a clean herb instead of a grimy herb, and you just automatically cleaned it. I feel like that would be a pretty nice benefit to this. The Forager's Pouch will only find herbs that it has room to store, but it will always attempt to give you an herb you can receive. So I was a little bit confused by that part, but the Forager's Pouch works like an herb sack, and it will also share an inventory, so you can't double up. The herb sack allows you to hold 30 of any herb. So what this means is that if you are full on a certain herb, let's say you already have 30 ranners in your herb sack, it's not going to give you any more rannars. However, we can kind of game this the other way around and fill up your herb sack with everything except for rannars and snapdragons, or just allow it to naturally fill up, and then every time you fill up rannar and snapdragon, you just keep it full and just empty those. And this will essentially force the random herb to roll for exactly what you need. To me, this is what makes this a very strong relic, is the fact that you can target farm specific herbs, basically. At least I think that's my current interpretation of it. So that random grimy herb aspect, really it could be any herb you want as long as you do the setup properly and then you're managing your sack. Hopefully that makes sense on how you can target farm herbs. I really feel like that is the key part of this relic and why it's going to be so strong. And additionally, you'll get that extra bonus to Herblore, a 90% chance to save secondary ingredients. This is especially helpful if your regions are lacking a certain secondary. Maybe like you don't have good access to snapegrass in the early game, and farming out like tribemen and Karamja just isn't a lot of fun, so this might help. And then the potions are going to be 4-dose instead of 3. I think this is just kind of a minor upgrade. It's nothing too special. Now, I think in general, people overrate Herblore in Leagues a little bit just because they're so used to having tons of herbs being printed out from PVM or raids and whatnot. But actually getting like your first set of prayer potions or Ceradomin brews, things like that, that's actually going to help you a lot to start doing that PVM in the first place. Remember that Jad is a new combat mastery task, so you might want to actually get something like this early so that you can start working and getting those early prayer potions to get you into the PVM early, to get those combat masteries, and then you'll really snowball from there. In addition, not every region even has an herb patch. I think the desert, the wilderness, and Tyrannwyn are all missing one. So if you're going for those regions, I think you definitely want to consider this just because you don't have a great alternative that doesn't just completely rely on boss drops. I think you'll hear that a lot in this video, that a lot of these relics are region dependent, and I think you should always keep your regions in mind when you're kind of assessing which relic you want to go for this tier. Only last caveat for this is that I don't know what the exact rate of these like gathering herbs is going to be, but I'm going to assume it's fairly generous enough that if you take this, Herblore is essentially not a problem in any capacity. Okay, so let's talk about Corner Cutter. This is the new agility relic. I say new, but it's very reminiscent of the agility portion of Trickster. You're still going to be getting those Sage's Greaves, which will give you agility experience as you run. I mean, there's really not even much to say about this. It's awesome. It's really good. Getting free agility just while you do literally anything is totally fine. Boots are just not an important slot at all, and by the time that actually matters at all, like you'll be totally fine with your agility. It's not even a problem. It's also enabled some pretty cool things like people having follow trains and running around like fountains and Lumbridge, and then you're getting agility experience AFK. So that's kind of cool. But what I really like is the added benefits as well. I don't think that they're as good as just passively training agility while you run, but they're nice to have. Mainly this one about completing an agility course grants you 2 completion counts and 25% bonus experience. 25% bonus experience is kind of negligible, like, meh, that's whatever. The double completion lap is very helpful if you have a region where laps are a part of your tasks. I think Kandarin immediately comes to mind with its 2000 monkey laps. Like, that is a pretty massive time saver if you're taking this relic. However, they have said that 2000 monkey lap task is being reduced, so there might be a chance that you don't even need to do that. And even then, like, you might just not even want to do this and instead just go for something else that has a little bit more like immediate impact on the rest of the game. Because that is something I'm noticing about this agility relic. While it does give you free agility and it does solve that, it doesn't really offer that much outside of that agility bonus. Okay, Marks of Grace spawning with 10,000 coins. This looks incredibly weak, but don't forget that this is probably going to be a very early game relic. I personally think that these are going to be tier 2 relics. Maybe you'll get this tier 3. I don't know, but it's going to be very early. And that extra 10,000 coins is going to get you started. Obviously, if you end up choosing a relic like Golden God, you probably don't really care about coins. That will solve it for you. However, having an initial cash stack and having some capital to work with is a very big boon to a lot of people. There are quite a bit of tasks in the early game that do require you to do some laps of rooftop courses. I mean, everybody does Drainer in the first hour. Like, that's a super common one. And if you can actually get some coins off that too, maybe you go to Varrock rooftop course, get some coins there. That might give you like the first 100k or 150k that you need. The really cool thing is doubling the quantity of pyramid tops, hollowed marks, Brimhaven vouchers, and crystal shards. However, off the top of my head, I don't think any of these are really that useful except for the hollowed marks, as there's quite a lot of tasks from actually getting items from the sepulcher in Mauritania. Overall, I just see this as a free solve for agility. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to think about it at all. With that added bonus of if you're in a region that actually has some kind of lap requirement associated with its courses. Looking at last year's task list, the more notable ones were 50 laps of the Prif course, 250 laps of any rooftop agility course, and then of course Kandarin with 2000 monkey laps, which we already talked about. Overall though, those are pretty insignificant, and I could see some more tasks being added that actually have lap count amounts, and this might make this a more appealing option. I think especially if you go to the wilderness, this is a very good pickup just because it's going to give you all the early agility that you need. Then you'll go to the wilderness agility course, and that will essentially fund you all the supplies that you could possibly need, as well as an insane amount of gold. You'll basically be completely fine. The Marks of Grace doesn't even matter. I'm curious if this also works with the Wildy course and you get like 2 Wildy laps done and like your streak goes up, because that would be really cool. Okay, finally, dodgy deals. This is the Thieving Relic. Pickpocketing an NPC will also pickpocket all NPCs of the similar type in an 11 by 11 square, granting extra loot for each NPC pickpocketed. 11 by 11 is oddly specific. I don't know why. I'm sure that they probably thought about this, but I think it's big enough that you'll probably always be pickpocketing like 2 or 3 of an NPC. It's going to be really strong. Most importantly, though, of course, is 100% success rate on all thieving checks. This opens up a world of new possibilities. It makes blood shards from Vyres a lot easier. It makes pickpocketing elves in Tyrannwyn way easier. You can use the crystals that you get from those elves to then make crystal tools, and now crafting and smithing are essentially solved in Tyrannwyn with this relic, because you just keep doing crystal shards. The dark chest in the Isle of Souls was a really popular place to go because it actually gave quite a lot of thieving experience when you can't fail. In addition, you'll automatically re-pickpocket any NPC or stall until you can no longer do so. One thing I'm not positive about is that like if guards can still get alerted while you're pickpocketing from stalls, I don't know how that works, or if they just fully ignore you. In addition, items obtained from pickpocketing are noted, and your maximum coin pouch count is increased by 3 times. Stalls also no longer deplete, which I think is going to make a couple of like gem stalls and things like that quite quite useful. In the past, this relic was also used if you had the ice gloves, which would require either the Fremenic or Ascarnia to get them. You could actually AFK pickpocket Sar in like the inner area, and they would give you like a whole ton of gems. Any NPC that doesn't have a coin pouch will allow you to AFK it for quite a long amount of time until your inventory fills up, because you're not naturally going to be restricted by that coin pouch limit. And even if you don't have the ice gloves, now that stalls no longer deplete, if you have access to any of the gem stalls, that's also a very good option as well to get your crafting up. I was originally worried about the respawn time of the stalls, but they don't deplete. So you'll actually be able to just keep going as long as, I guess, somebody else doesn't come crash you. There's actually a gem stall in the inner portion of Tahar City, which will require your fight caves. Like one time you'll have to complete it. But that gem stall also has up to onyxes, which is insane. And there's also a ore stall as well with up to runite ore. So straight up, this not only gives you thieving, but it also will give you smithing and crafting as long as you've completed Jad once. And that's going to be totally AFK. You're not going to have to do anything. The stall won't deplete. You'll just sit there and pickpocket, get noted stuff. There's no coin pouches to even worry about. One quick fix: while pickpocketing will give you noted stuff, stalls will not actually give you noted. So the gem and the ore stall in Karumja is still going to be very, very good. It's just not going to be quite as strong as like pickpocketing elves and just getting them fully noted, fully AFK. Those are the most important stalls I've noticed so far. The only other thing about this is clues. A lot of NPCs have a much higher chance now of giving you clues, especially over in Kandarin. So while it does benefit a lot from that agility portion, it also benefits a lot from the thieving portion, having access to a huge stream of clues. But even outside of that, I know that thieving ham members is a very easy way of getting easy clue scrolls. And I mean, with this relic, you just go to Lumbridge, you sit there for like 20 minutes. You'll get a whole bunch of garbage from the ham members, but you'll also get a ton of clues. Personally, I've been really thinking about going Tyrannwyn and dodgy deals. Getting that auto pickpocket is going to help a lot with getting crystal shards and whatnot. Originally, I was valuing the crafting and smithing from elves really high, but now that I realize that you can get crafting and smithing supplies in Tahar City anyways, I don't even know if this really matters for Tyrannwyn. Maybe you don't go for this. That being said, Mortania is still a pretty big option for me, and I think getting blood shards over there is hard to pass up, especially when the Sepulchre is so strong anyways for training your agility. I think I'm leaning very hard towards dodgy deals. Now, if you do take Overgrown, that farming relic, I don't think that going for the Herblore Relic is as good anymore, just because you're already getting a good stream of herbs. But if you're willing to do your farm runs and maybe just don't have access to a lot of herb patches, so let's say you have a hardwood tree, but you don't have herb patches, then that Herblore Relic is still going to be pretty helpful. And that's it for today's reveal. I think that this is going to be a very tough choice, honestly. Even though I'm very much sold on thieving right now, I also feel that being able to target farm any specific herb you want is going to be very, very strong. The setup is going to be a little bit annoying, having to fill up your herb pouch so you aren't getting the ones that you're already full on, but I feel like that won't take that much time in the grand scheme of things, and then you'll just get the exact herb you want every single time. And that to me is quite broken. It's a cool choice. I really love how they have split up the power of Trickster between the agility portion and the thieving portion. It's just a cool trade-off and kind of shows how powerful that relic was last year, that both of these relics are still very strong on their own. I also want to point out just how many relics we've been getting. It seems like we're getting so many relic announcements on top of all the combat masteries as well. So I'm really excited to have the full list of relics and really start planning things out once we know everything about them. Thanks for watching, guys. We also have a big update to the Leagues 5 planner sheet today, fixing a lot of the bugs and a lot of the typos that you guys have found. We've also revamped the scoring of skills to reflect your maximum, like your best training method, instead of a sum of a bunch of bad methods, as well as documenting all of the scores so you can actually hover over them and see the justification for why a certain region is given a certain score. Don't forget that this is just a baseline, and there might be some very unique ways in your regions to solve these different skills. And this is just the groundwork so that at a glance, you know what regions are strong and what regions are weak. I can't wait for tomorrow's announcement. I know that we still have one tier of combat relics that I'm really waiting to hear about. So maybe we'll get our first glance of that tomorrow.